everyone, welcome to day 6 of the book The Absolute Law of Karma, written by Param Pujya Gurudev Pandit 𝗢𝐴𝐴. In the last audio, we concluded on the fact that it is only and only the intention with which we do something or say something is what matters, and the degree of emotional involvement with what we are doing or saying. That is, whatever we are doing or saying are we doing it with the intention of uplifting others, doing something good for others, or doing something good for ourselves? And with what degree of emotional involvement are we doing it fully with all our body, heart, soul and mind? Or we are doing it very half-heartedly just to maybe show someone that we are doing a good deed, but inside we are not feeling like it. Hence, it is the degree of emotional involvement and the intentions that matter when we are doing or saying something. That is, when we are creating a karmic account. Let's read further today. Upon being exhorted by his divine teacher Krishna, Arjun got millions killed in the war of Mahabharata. The great confrontation, during which the entire battlefield became littered with corpses, took place because Arjun agreed to take part in the war. In this way, Arjun could have been considered as a great sinner, but Chitragupta gave credit to his motive for waging the Mahabharata war. Arjun's intentions were pious. He had fought only to re-establish the moral order, 𝗢𝗂𝗏. Chitragupta's ledger did not take into account the slain bodies of the dead soldiers. So here Gurudev is giving us an example of the Mahabharata war, which was fought around 5,000 years ago in Kurukshetra in India. And this is not just mythology, it is the history of India, Bharatvarsh, wherein Arjun, who was one of the Pandavas, fought against his cousins, the Kauravas, who were 100 in number, but he had Lord Krishna on his side. And Lord Krishna had advocated every way in which the war could have been avoided. He had even requested the Kauravas to grant the Pandavas just 5 villages to rule and live peacefully, but they denied them any land. In fact, Duryodhan is quoted saying, "I will not even concede land as big as the tip of a needle to the Pandavas." And therefore, this war was fought in order to re-establish the dharma. There is also one of the opening shlokas in the Mahabharata which says, "Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharatah abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyam," which means that whenever there is a decrease in the dharma and whenever there is a rise in adharma, or whenever people will stop following the moral principles of dharmic ways of life, I or the God himself will manifest on earth to re-establish dharma. And that is why the war of Mahabharata was fought. Therefore, in Chitragupta's statement of accounts, this war wherein Arjun played a major role in driving the war and killing, which resulted in killing of so many people, will not be counted as a sin because the intention behind it was to re-establish God's ways of life, which is nothing but dharma. Let's read further. Chitragupta's ledger did not take into account the slain bodies of the dead soldiers. Physical objects have no relevance in the invisible realm. Chitragupta simply ignored the number of toys of flesh and bones destroyed during the war. Does a king bother about the number of toys broken or the number of grains spilled? No. In this world, billionaires are held in high regard, but in the realm of Chitragupta, they are paupers and non-entities. On the other hand, a poor man of this world, if he is kind-hearted, could be counted in the realm of Chitragupt amongst the king of kings. Whatever a man does, only his motives, good or bad, are recorded in the corresponding account of Chitragupt. A public executioner who, in course of his duty, hangs a person condemned to death without any malice could be considered a virtuous person by Chitragupt, whereas a priest who meticulously follows all the rituals but is secretly engaged in corrupt practices will be labelled as a sinner. So here Gurudev is trying to explain us that no matter what we are doing in the outside world, if it is a part of our duty, for example, a public executioner who pulls the rod to hang a person will be considered not guilty in the eyes of Chitragupt because he is just doing his duty. He is executing the death sentence that has been given to that person by the court of justice. Whereas if there is a priest who is actually in the eyes of the physical world is performing his puja and rituals day in and day out, but inside him he is involved in corrupt practices, or he steals money from the dan peti, or anything, if he indulges in something which is not morally correct, then he will be labelled as a sinner in the eyes of Chitragupt. And we all know Chitragupt is not any external deity, but it is your own subconscious mind or your own soul inside you that knows what is right and what is wrong in the astral world. Let's read further. In the realm of God of divine law, that is Dharmaraj, the decorations of the exterior world have no values. There, only the interior worth is evaluated. It hardly matters whether externally an action of a person appears good or bad. The determining factor is the interior or the emotional input. The roots of vice and virtue unquestionably lie in the motives and the intensity of emotions, and not in the external deeds. Here again, Gurudev is trying to tell us that it is only and only what lies inside us, what is the intention or the motive of anything that which of any of our action, and the intensity of our emotions with which we have done that action is what really counts. In the foregoing paragraphs, we have discussed how the deity Chitragupt, living intimately associated with our inner lives, that is pranas, impartially records our good and bad deeds on the sub-microscopic elements of our inner conscience, and that this subtle recording is popularly known as the lines of fate or the karma rekha. We have also understood that the process of divine justice does not regard an act as sinful or virtuous by the external appearance of the activity, but on the basis of the quality of the motive of the doer. The intensity of the motive is directly proportional to the gravity or greatness of the sin or virtue respectively. Take the case of two individuals nursing a sick person. Apparently, both are engaged in the same service, but whereas one is doing it indifferently, the other serves with tenderness, sympathy, large-heartedness, and love. Here, in spite of apparently identical service, the measure of virtue will depend on the quality of emotional involvement and love. Similarly, amongst two thieves, one is compelled to steal because of starvation, and the other steals for acquiring drugs. The sin will undoubtedly be considered greater in the latter case. Now here Gurudev is trying to explain to us that why the two things, number one, the intentions or the motive of the action, and number two, the intensity or involvement of your inner emotions will either enhance a good deed or even make the sin count more worse. So these two things are very important, and he's giving an example of, suppose two people are nursing for a sick man and one is just doing it because it's his duty, or maybe he's paid to do that with zero emotions or neither positive or negative emotions. He's just doing it very indifferently by being very uninvolved in the act. But the other person, even if he's paid to do that, he really puts all the tenderness, care, warmth from his heart into that person, that sick person. Therefore, the virtue or the positive points given for this karma will be much higher than in the first case. And similarly, if one is doing a bad deed like stealing, maybe someone is doing it out of some compulsions or because they are starving and they have no other means to eat, and the other is stealing because he wants to buy some drugs or he wants to just harm the other person, and therefore the degree of the sin will be greater in the second case than in the first case. Hence, two things to keep in mind always. While there is a karma rekha being formed, or the imprint of the karma being formed, it will always be higher or lower given the intention of that karma and the degree of emotional involvement of that karma. Thank you for listening in today. Pranam.
हमारे YouTube चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए और बेल आइकन पर क्लिक कीजिए ताकि आने वाली सभी वीडियो की नोटिफिकेशन आपको मिलती रहे। आप सभी को बहुत बहुत थैंक यू।